Welcome to the Low Production, High Value Show with your host, Andrew Jenkins. On the show, we'll be exploring the world of entrepreneurship, social media, and the growing digital landscape. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, you know that the world of business is constantly evolving and changing. And in today's digital age, it is more important than ever to understand how social media and technology are affecting the way we do business. That's why on this show, we'll be talking to entrepreneurs and experts who have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share with you. From the latest trends and technologies to the struggles and triumphs of running a business, we'll be covering it all. So if you're looking to level up your entrepreneurial game and become more digitally savvy, then let's get started with the Low Production, High Value Show.
So I want to welcome Michael Smith from Integram to today's show. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Andrew. Great to be here.
Well, listen, for those who are maybe not familiar, share with us a little bit about what Integram and yourself within it do.
Well, great to be here. As I said, Andrew, we've been in business for 31 years, Andrew. Hard to believe. I've been married for 31 years. Well, that's another story.
That's a separate episode.
Separate episode. It ties in certainly with my business. Andrew, I started the business in sports marketing after I worked at Procter & Gamble and represented a bunch of athletes, and then worked for a long time in the corporate world with Pepsi and some big organizations, and got morphed into working with SMEs. So for the last 10 years, been focused on small, medium-sized enterprises, working with entrepreneurs to help them grow and thrive. And it's I just really love what we do, and we're making a difference and really enjoying every day. You know, it's a journey. It's fun. We love our clients, and I've got some good partners in the business, and it's quite a journey.
So when you talk about working with SMEs and leaders and owners, when you begin an engagement, or even when you're, shall we say, having some preliminary conversations with them, where do you find them? What are they struggling or challenged by when they think about engaging you?
So it's interesting, you know, Andrew, as I said, in 31 years, how we've changed our business. And in the early days, I was dealing with athletes. And the great thing about athletes, Andrew, is they were so driven. You knew they had a plan. They had a vision of where they wanted to go. And then we got into some big businesses, again, like Pepsi and Jack Links and TD Bank and so on, Gillette. And the growth was about, 1% kind of growth and where they wanted to be. And it was, to be honest, Andrew, kind of boring. Now we meet with entrepreneurs, and they're like, the guys that I like to engage with are inspired to do greatness. Like, they really want to make a difference. They don't quite know how to do it, but they're inspired and they want to make a difference in the marketplace. They want to understand how to change. I can't teach someone to change. If they really want to change and they have to change, bring it on. Bring me a big plan. That's exciting for us. So the last 10 years has been a real journey, and our clients, we really look at them and say, okay, where are you in the marketplace? And if they want to retire, talk to private equity companies, which I'm actually a partner in. We'll get into that. But talk to we can help you retire if you want. But if you want to build your business and you really want to grow it, talk to us. Bring on a big plan. That's exciting for us. I'm sure it's the same in your business.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, right?
Well, when that kind of conversation is playing out, are you helping them to define one or more of those big, hairy, audacious goals and sort of working it back from where they are? Or from a strategic planning point of view, they're already accustomed to planning? Or like, where in that spectrum do you find them?
I would say most big companies, Andrew, have a strat plan, right? They have a strat planning department, strategic planning department. They know where they want to go. In the case of Pepsi, it's 1% to 2% growth. In terms of Gillette, it was always around 10%. It depends on the organization, but they have a strategic plan. SMEs, generally, they kind of think, okay, I want to be 10% bigger next year, but they really don't look strategically at where they want to go. So that's the conversation. So if I sit down with somebody and they say to me, Mike, Fina, who's my business partner, I want to grow the heck out of this business. We've really done a great job, but we have no idea to get there. Help us. So I've taken this big business sort of strategic approach that we learned at Procter & Gamble and the Pepsis of the world and so on. and implemented that into our SME partners, Andrew. It's a process, right? Like everybody's different. Everybody's at different stages. But give me the heart, give me the inspiration. When I was a hockey coach, give me someone with heart that wants to be great, not the guy that's really talented that's lazy, right? Just give me the heart. Give me heart over talent every day. And if they're good at what they do and they really want to be better, that's when we can make a difference. So we really have that conversation, Andrew. It's much like your business, I'm sure, when you're talking about social media. And by the way, congratulations on your book. It's great.
Oh, thank you.
You've done some fantastic things. And you're looking always to change your business and how we can do things better. And that's the kind of entrepreneur that we want to deal with, to be honest.
How do you help them avoid that common problem with strategic planning, which is a company will go through this, process. They might even do an offsite with key members of the team, and they leave with, literally or metaphorically, a strategic plan, and then they go back to the office, and that strategic plan goes up on the on the shelf, never to be looked at again until 5 years from now. How do you help clients avoid that? Okay, we did it, and then they, with no reference back to it, to track their progress.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Because again, everybody will have these offsites and they kumbaya by the fireplace.
Yeah,
and
they come back to the office with religion.
Yeah, it's all awesome. We love it. And then somewhere someone wrote down something. I happen to have a partner who's a writer, and she's amazing at amazing at notes and follow-ups and that kind of stuff. So it keeps me organized, Andrew. But you know what happens is you have these offsites, you walk away, just like you're saying, and you forget everything that was said. And so this is a Procter & Gamble approach where we had 3-year, 1-year, 90-day rolling plans. We call it 3-1-90. So you have a 3-year plan, which is kind of out there and you can touch it and you can do a lot of stuff in 3 years. I mean, look how we've come from COVID. Look at your book, look at your company and where you've come from. So 3-year kind of vision of where you want to go, 7 to 10 really cool, audacious, big plans. I love to have a big audacious plan. And then you have your 1 year, which, everybody kind of does, right? Because you have your annual, reviews and all that kind of stuff. And it's 10% of whatever. But you have your 3 years, your 1 year, and then your 90-day rolling plan. So there's four plans during the year. Every 90 days, you have a new plan. You sit down with them, with your team, and you say, okay, what are we going to do this quarter, right? And you can have
if I can interject, are you blowing up the previous 90-day plan, or is it just kind of you're evolving basically you're reflecting on the previous 90 days, you're looking at the next quarter in relation to the longer plan? Is that
well, and it depends.
How you're framing it?
It depends. Like, at the end of the day, what we try to say is you can do lots of things in 3 years and very little in 90 days. So, try to do 3 to 4 really good things and then check them off. Like, we actually have a sheet where you're checking off. Did you do it? What were the actual results? So you track those results. I can look back on my company from 2020 and say, what did I accomplish? Where did I go in the last 3 years and so on and so forth? So that's really important for an organization. So it's that rolling 90-day plan is where the rubber hits the road, Andrew. It's, the annual plan stuff doesn't work. Like, you have to be strategic in where you want to go. But every year you have to then have a new 3-1-90, right? Because you have to sit down with the team and say, Chat GPT, who knew that was going to happen, right? Like, boom, 1 million users in 5 days. So how does that affect social media? How does it affect marketing? How does it affect your business? How does it affect how you communicate? So you have to, I say, put aside 10% of your time to think about those blue ocean strategies that really can help your margins, Andrew, can give you a point of difference, can create new marketplace opportunities. You really have to look at those things. So it's really important to be conscientious in writing these things down and following up on them. Right? I know when my quarters end, I'm on it, and
right.
Tina and Jacob and my team kind of go, "Oh no, Mike! Here comes Mike again, saying we got to go to our next 90." But you got to do it, right? And you got to get the team engaged. The other thing I want to say, Andrew, is you really got to have bottom up. So if you, as the business owner, and you've got 10 people, and you say, "Here, we're going to be $100 million business in 5 years," and the team's like, "What? Like, where are you coming from? Are you crazy? We're not going to do that." But if it comes from the team and they say, "I want to be a $100 million business," that's a different conversation. We had a planning session the other day with a client, and he wrote down big, this is one of the directors wrote down a big goal. And the owners kind of went, oh my gosh, that's huge. But everybody bought into it because it was bottom up.
But
Really,
to stir things up at the bottom,
yeah,
to get that commitment, or for
yeah.
them to define their own audacious goals, are you are they do they have a piece of the action, or like equity or profit sharing or big bonuses? I mean, no disrespect to people, but most people aren't doing it altruistically from the bottom up.
Yeah, what I have learned in business is that money's not everything, Andrew. And when we were working with big business, to be honest, I was making a lot more money. But I love what I do. I mean, I could hardly wait to talk to you today. I love helping people and helping small SMEs thrive and grow. That's a big part of my passion. Of course, employees want to be remunerated, but I always will say, if we're going to get to $100 million and you're coming along for the journey, you're going to make more money, man. Like the money's going to come. But if you love what you do and you're good at it and you have a point of difference and your customers are calling you and they like what you do, the company's going to thrive and grow. Every organization that we deal with, where the leaders have that philosophy, where if we grow, you're going to grow with us and you're going to get remunerated, business thrives, man. It just like things turn on, and customers are happy, employees are happy. But we really want to. I'm dealing with a lot of baby boomers, Andrew,
Mm-hmm.
people that have been in business 20 plus years, and they're thinking about retirement and succession planning. So really, we look for those I2 people in the organization that can take over and replace the Andrew Jenkins of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those people that are the drivers in the business. And that's the longevity of the business. That's really crucial for success. So to answer your question, yeah, sure. Money is going to come if the company grows. And yes, you have to have a bonus structure. And that's part of the planning process, is to make sure that your employees know there's something in it for them down the road, right? They're going to make more money if we grow.
So does that mean so you might be engaged initially by an owner, but are
Yeah.
you, call it, spider webbing your way throughout the organization
Yeah.
to be working with key members of their team?
Yeah. We do a lot of leadership training, and I'll get to that, but it all starts with the owner. So I told him, if he has an inspiration, if I'm talking to you and you say, Michael, I want to build my business, like bring it on. So that's good. Then the next thing we do is meet with the team and say, okay, team, we have an introductory session. We meet with the team and say, okay, do you guys like the business? Do you, how do you get along with the owner? Is there, let's have a conversation.
Right.
And
Are these conversations one-on-one?
Yeah, well, depends on the organization. We just left. We had a leadership training with 15 people, mostly leaders in the organization. We asked them, have to have a breakout session and talk to each other. Andrew, like, where are you from? Like, you're a teacher. I learned the other day about your movie star background.
Yeah.
So what are you engaged in,
Mm-hmm.
and what's important to you, and gain that trust, right? So if you have trust in an organization, then you can build up from there. So really, it's understanding not only is the owner want to make a difference, but are the employees engaged? We recently had an employee just the other day who was there day 3, and we decided this. And the owner called me and said, "I don't think he's going to fit. It's just not the right fit." Day 3, Andrew, because the fit wasn't there in that team. It's like a great hockey team. I met with, or a soccer team. I met with Dick Howard, the legendary Dick Howard, who was on TSN, was my soccer coach the other day. And we were talking about the great teams and how they operate. Well, everybody was united going forward. It wasn't about Dick Howard saying, here's how you play triangles and all of this kind of stuff. It was about the captain, Doug Barman, the team kind of working together collectively to build up the organization. That's really fun. And that, even Andrew, to take it a step further, when I dealt with athletes, you got to, the phenomenal athletes that I dealt with, they were part of a big, broader organization, but they had their own plan, their own vision, their own template of what they wanted to accomplish. And so that's cool, right? That fits into the overall organization.
Well, so when it comes to accountability, then, so even though you are talking to a variety of members of the leadership team, is most of your conversation around accountability with the owner CEO, and then they're holding their senior leaders accountable, or are you having accountability discussions throughout an engagement with all the different touch points?
Yeah, so I think really there's a guy named Michael Gervais. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a sports psychologist and has done pod training. So,
Hmm.
it's really the understanding of the individual and creating your own templates for success. So, within and how that fits within a group, right? So he's trained, I don't know, 40,000 Microsoft employees. And what they did is they created their own template for success, and they made them accountable in terms of what they were going to do within that, not only within their own, goal setting, but also, Andrew, within their pods. So how are we going to, this little group here, how are they going to be successful? And we're doing the same formula. So with one of our global organizations, they've got about 200 people globally, and we're training them on leadership training. And what we're doing is creating mini teams that can work together to create a bigger unity. But it starts with the individual. And if the individual doesn't fit, it's really difficult. Like they're not bought into the plan, or if they don't really care about leadership training, or they really don't want to work within a group. How can you build something that's important and different and stronger? So in terms of to answer your question, in terms of being accountable, it's not only being accountable to yourself, it's not only being accountable to these pods that you would create, but it's being accountable to the overall organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we believe in the bottom-up approach with our planning, to understand what the vision is of where the organization and how you fit in with that. That's where the inspiration starts.
Do you turn away from an engagement if your spidey sense tells you that this owner is not going to hold themselves accountable?
Totally. I would say, and that's a difficult thing to do. Especially if business is tough. As entrepreneurs, Andrew, you have the peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys. And right now, I'm talking to my banker on a daily basis. That's just the nature of the beast. Things happen, right? And the first check that I pay is to my staff and my team, right? And then and then so on and so forth, and I come last. So to answer your question, I think it's really important to understand where you're going with this, how making sure you communicate effectively and your team's on board. That's really crucial.
To bring about the change necessary for them to, and it doesn't necessarily have to be dramatic change, just if you even want to call it an evolution, to bring about the necessary change, are you working through the pods to facilitate the change? Are you highlighting one pod to another if one pod or one or more pods is exemplifying the target behavior? Talk to me a little bit about I'll call it the change process.
Yeah. So Andrew, I talked about the 10% earlier. I would call them strategic byproducts or blue ocean strategies. Right. Those things that can make the huge difference in your business, but you don't know where they are, but they're going to come. I'll use the example of leadership training. It's all of a sudden 50% of our business, Andrew, and we didn't even really know it a couple of years ago. And it just changed. It was something I always did. It was something I love to do. And now we've codified it, and we're really doing it and engaged in it. I think in terms of for an example, let's use ChatGPT. In your business, all of a sudden it's changed how people write content. All of a sudden people are rock stars in terms of content. Well, I got Fina, and she's a rock star, and she's written books for people like Dave Chilton and so on. So it's hard for me to compete with her in terms of writing. But all of a sudden you got ChatGPT, and you put in a conversation, and you got content. You got to look at how you're going to engage that from a marketing standpoint, from a social media, how you're going to engage that into your business. Some old school people may say, yeah, it's all crap. Like, it's just generic, content. It's not really worthwhile. But what you need to do, Andrew, is there's 5 levels of behavior of effective organizations. The first level is trust. The second level is conflict. So let's say I want to make a change, but I've gained the trust with my organization, and there's a conflict. Well, you sit down with the team and you talk to them. You sit down with the pods or the organization, or whatever. You actually have a conversation and say, let's talk about this because I really think it's important for our business. And this one person may say, you know what, doesn't fit, doesn't work for us because I'm an old school guy and I want to write it, and it's not working for my style.
Mm-hmm.
Great, but I'm the leader of that pod or the organization. We have a roundtable conversation. Everybody needs to be heard, and at the end of the conversation, I say, look, we're using it. We're going to try it. I've heard you. I listened to you, but I heard you, because most people want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily. I don't think anybody's ego is big enough to say we have to do all the things that I say. Some people do, and they don't fit in the organization, to be honest. But most people, when we go through these conflict situations, are listening, Andrew. They want to be heard, right? They want to be vocal. And then you say, listen, I heard you, but I'm the leader. I got to make a decision. We got to move forward. Because if you can't make decisions, you're not going to get committed.
Right. But
you're not, you have to commit to a decision and then move forward.
Well, with that in mind, the whole, good to great and getting the right people on the bus.
Yeah.
You have these frank conversations to see where people are at from a mindset. Are they on board or I don't mean to be cutthroat, or do we need to make a change? And not everyone is a fit, or there are chapters in the life of an organization, and some people live through every chapter, and some people right place, right time, but whether they self-select out or a change has to be made and they're not a fit for the next chapter. It's a long-winded preamble or to set the stage for when you look at change. And I sort of liken it to a bell curve. You've got 20% of the people on the right side of the bell curve already exemplified target behavior, on board, keen, leading the change or leading most of the initiatives. The fat middle, 60%, on the fence, indifferent, but they'll go along with what's necessary. And then you have the laggards. So when you focus your energy to move the organization, are you aligning with or having allies with the 20% that are already exhibiting the target behavior to work on the 60%? And are you part two? Are you ignoring the laggards because you can exhaust too much energy there? Only that could end up being futile.
So I think you're asking, Andrew, if I may say, you're asking, what do we do with the people in the middle that are always going to be I was going to say the S word, disturbers.
You can say what you want. This is
the Mavericks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, this is going to sound completely contrary. I'm going to tell you those people are awesome for the organization.
Well, okay? I'm not suggesting that they're not a fit or anything like that. It's just from I'll call it sort of their nature.
Yeah.
They are supportive of where you might be taking the organization and so on, but they're not the ones to raise their hand first, if that makes sense. Maybe they need a little more convincing. They need to feel a little more certain about the action, where the organization is going and their place within it. Maybe I'm summarizing that incorrectly, but
there's a gentleman by the name of Patrick Lencioni who's done the 5 behaviors of an effective team. Do you know?
I've read all of his books. I love it.
So it starts, Andrew, and I've said this before, but it starts with trust. So you sit down with an organization and you build trust, and that's understanding each other. That's having, your one-day outings with the team or more, to be honest. And the great, COVID's now gone. I don't want to talk about COVID anymore.
Right.
Like get together as a team. No one wants to people have been home too much and they don't want to meet in person. We got to get your team together. There's only so much of this we can do, Andrew. We should be doing this in person, right? We're pretending we're having a coffee. But trust is where you start, as you know. And then when there's conflict, when the people that just say, blind faith, okay, whatever, that's that Smith guy, he's crazy, and he's got 17 million ideas, and every time it's a new idea, it makes me crazy, and I'm just going to go along with it. Well, those are the guys, the quiet guys. That's the guys that they're most problematic, to be very honest with you, because they haven't had a voice. So what we really try to do, Fina's really good at this, to be honest, probably better than I am, because brings that intuitive side of the business. I'm more of a driver, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
If you know the disc trainer, I'm a driver, and I love to get things done. I'd like to see action. Fina's about understanding the people and talking to our organizations and really bringing them out. So it's a matter of really having good sessions and saying, Andrew, are you really sure you're okay with ChatGPT? I mean, you told me, you're your body language is saying no. Talk to me about it. Like really having a
Right.
conversation.
Like to draw them out.
For sure, right? Because how are you going to get to the next level commitment? How are you going to get people to commit to something unless you've had a conversation, right? So if we're committing, then once we've made that commitment, then you'll get the results and then you'll get the activity. But I think that whole process that we do, Andrew, in leadership training is crucial for moving the business forward when you have anything new, or you're creating a new brand, or you're creating a strategic plan, or the why, how, what, Simon Sinek. Like, don't just agree with it. Let's have a conversation about it, right? Because the owner may think, okay, this is great. Everybody's agreed. Well, we haven't heard from everybody.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Social media has become an imperative for almost every business. Discover how to successfully implement an effective social media strategy that is supported and integrated throughout every part of your organization with this essential book from our host, Andrew Jenkins. Social Media Marketing for Business, Scaling an Integrated Social Media Strategy Across Your Organization, is now available from Amazon or KoganPage.com.
Have you been in a situation where you've led these facilitated discussions, whether the leader is in the room or not, only to discover that, the leader has said, oh, they trust me. And you discover, maybe not so much. Either, there's been a betrayal of trust in the past, or to your point, there are some, I'll call it scattershot leadership styles where, and I've worked for some of them where every month there's a new idea and we didn't finish executing the last idea. So they are doing themselves a disservice as the leaders, like, because every new idea, takes priority over the last one, but we never finish anything, those sorts of things. I'm just curious about the whole, do you surface distrust or a lack of trust?
Happens, man. Like, Andrew, I like to say all of our clients are perfect. I'm going to talk about one client who are definitely nameless. And we met with the group, and everybody was kumbaya by the fireplace. We love this company.
Do this.
and then the owner couldn't make it. He was in wherever. And so I had a conversation with my partner, and we sort of said, okay, what do you really think? So because I'm missing something here. And it was like, and then there was one guy who would start something and say, well, we just had a meeting. And there was 10 people in the meeting. And the owner walked in and said, "Okay, I'm paying you $150, you $150, you $150. This is costing me $1,000. What do you guys want?" Right. So, I mean, that's the worst case scenario, and it's definitely remained nameless who that was.
Yes.
But and he doesn't even know about this conversation. But that we quickly ended that sort of relationship. I would say one of my partners in the architectural space is probably one of my favorite clients. I'm a partner in it through the private equity relationship that I have. And he's very vocal, loves the business, loves architectural space. He's just loves looking at buildings and stuff, and totally inspired to do sustainable architecture. He's awesome, but really believes in his team. Like, he's always saying, okay, what do you think? Kyle and other people that are in the organization. And that's a different conversation, right, Andrew? I mean, if you don't completely has that trust, started with the base, which Lancioni talks about, is understanding and listening to the customers, the employees rather. But if you in this case, when we made the change from a Me Too architect to a sustainable architect, it was a big shift, and there was a lot of conversation because they were doing the $500,000 renos in Rosedale, on the kitchen, right, whatever. But it didn't fit the sustainable architecture, so we had a big shift in terms of the organization, and there was a lot of conversation around it. But at the end of the day, the owner said, "I've listened, but it's my business. This is what we're doing," and everybody was behind it, and they were committed. That's the way to handle things, rather than saying, "I don't trust you guys. I don't know why we're in this meeting room. I've heard the complaints all the time. I don't want to listen. You're not going anywhere.
Well, do you take a bit of an approach of the cliche, the burning platform? I mean, you use ChatGPT as an example. I'll just call it any sort of black swan event. I mean, hey, whether we want to talk about COVID or not, it made people rethink their business because it was a black swan event.
Yeah.
But this idea of you've shifted their business or their frame of mind about it from we're in the architectural business and we do $500,000 renos in Rosedale.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, but that doesn't speak to our values. So we're going to lead with sustainable engagements. Does that, and so then with that in mind, do you also work with them to not fall back on, or not to fall off the wagon and go back to where the money is, or where the money used to be, and adhere to these new values?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you're right there. You're doing the same thing, and sure, you're engaged in this all the time with your clients, right? Is you try to take them in a new direction, but they are used to what they're doing.
Well, so social is, speak to your points. Yeah. Social is a bit of in some ways, a new behavior.
Yeah, because they haven't done it before.
Yeah.
But Andrew, in terms of specifically, let's talk about the architectural firm that we deal with. They for 30 years they did things a certain way, and there was this interest in sustainable architecture, right? And we wanted to become the Tesla, the electric cars of architecture, if you will, and really make a difference in the marketplace. And this was, again, 5 years ago, and there wasn't that many sustainable architects. Now there's lots. I just think it's boom. Mm-hmm. But we got in relatively early. But it was a passion. And what we did do, Andrew, it was a process. So we didn't say, okay, on June, what is today? The 2nd, we're no longer doing, those $500,000 renos. Our USP, which is really important, and we spend a lot of time on unique selling proposition. What makes you different in the marketplace is sustainable architecture. But what that's our position in the marketplace. Right. But we're not going to live there 100%. We're going to graduate. Mm-hmm. And so at one point, I think 95% of their business today is sustainable, but it's going towards sustainable architecture. We're not turning down those big projects because, look, you got to pay the bills. Right. There's lots of stuff.
But to your point, if it could be infused with sustainable thinking, if they have an opportunity to be advisory to clients, to talk about, I'll call it elements of sustainability in the project. Maybe where that conversation wouldn't have happened 5 years ago, now it is.
Yeah, they become experts, and so it's morphing now, even in sustainable architecture, because there's been a softening, Andrew, in the marketplace. And by the way, I don't believe in. You and I have lived through. We're old enough. We got our gray hairs to understand that there's downturns in the marketplace. Yeah. There's a natural downturn. So now they're more they're viable, sustainable. They've changed their positioning and their tech. So you got to be adapt, and you got to change to the marketplace and what's going on, and be aware of the world around you, of course. So you just got to be careful. But certainly with many of our clients, I'm dealing with a project called the Blood Project, a Harvard University project driven, and they know they're knitting. They're going to help people think differently about blood. They're going to train people. And they're very specific. We've carved out a niche. They're doing all kinds of great work. There's 50 global doctors that we're chairing, and that's through COVID. It was kind of really cool. Mm-hmm. But they really understand their niche, and they're not wavering from it. So that's a great example of someone that can stick to their niche. We have a builder client that's doing a bunch of different things, but they're doing really good big commercial properties in Toronto, and they're very specific on their geo map. From a social standpoint, right. Like we know where they're working, right? And so they're not taking out projects in Muskoka, or they're not taking projects up north of, like they're Rosedale, Forest Hill, and so on. They're in a very specific niche, and they've really done very well because they're known as that organization that is different in that area. So unique selling proposition, what makes you better? Andrew, you were one of the first guys in social media, right? Like you've done a lot of stuff. Like when I think of you, I think if I want to talk about social, I'll call you, mm-hmm. right? Hopefully,
thank you.
hopefully when people want to build their business and mm-hmm. they want to think differently about the business, they'll call me and Fina. They'll call us because I'm passionate about helping our clients build that kind of difference. But the unique selling proposition, like if you don't have that, then what are you going to do? So how are you going to stand out socially? How are you going to stand out on your website? How are you going to get better margins, right? So you have to have a position. It doesn't mean to say you have to live there 100% of the time, right? Because you can't, right? Because there's projects that you will take that sometimes the money's too great, or it's an interesting opportunity, right? It's something completely different that gets you into that 10%.
When it comes to developing a USP, are you surfacing, I'll just call them concepts,
Right,
during a discovery phase?
right.
Are you facilitating, I'll call it ideation or a combination thereof? Like, as in, like, through your conversations with clients, are you seeing the seeds of a USP that then through facilitation becomes more concrete, or how do you get them from A to B?
Yeah, great question. So we do everything on one. We keep it really simple because what I have learned from the big organizations, the 50-page brand plans, Andrew, don't work for small business. So everything's on one page. So we do what's called a brand essence, and we start the very first conversation we have with any client is the why. Simon Sinek, why, how, what. We use the elevator pitch. But why are you here? Why do people care? Why do they want to buy from you? What's the real why? Why? And that helps us with the how, which is your point of difference.
Mm-hmm.
And the what is, I'm in social media, right? Right. That's the what.
Right.
But I'm a business coach. Okay, who cares? But if I'm going to help you build your business for the long term in a sustainable way, and I'm passionate about what I do, different conversation than saying, yeah, I'm a business coach, hire me, right? So we go through the why and really try to understand. And the very next thing we do is their principles. So what are your principles in the organization? Andrew, you're a principled guy, right? I know you. I've known you for some time.
Mm-hmm.
I like to call you a friend, but we've done some business together.
Mm-hmm.
But you're a principled guy. Like your word is your valor, that your honor, that's your badge, right? To me, you're, you know your shit, right? You know your stuff, right? So some of your principles, ours are work hard, play hard, 100% passion, only deal with great people. I mean, have an organization, listen first, seek to, that kind of stuff. So get your principles, get your brand promise, what you're promising every day, your USP, and then your tagline. Nike Just Do It wasn't done by a smart agency guy like I used to be. It came from bottom up. It came from a salesperson in their organization, and then it developed as a platform for the organization. So listen to your team. Like, don't just say, here's our position. But I think everybody needs a position in the marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
and what stands out.
As part of,
Well, I don't know if that answers your question.
no,
But
it does. I mean, as part of your USP, something that's come about over the last number of years is government grants,
Yeah.
and to enable,
Yeah.
I'll call it a transformation for many organizations about training, leadership, and in some cases like digital transformation as well, because there's a recognition, as you've identified as well. It's not just black swan events. It is that the competitive landscape keeps changing, shifting, and organizations, for the sake of their own survival, need to shift accordingly.
Yeah.
And so, talk to me about that. Using grants because small business, that to your point, they don't have the budgets of a Procter and Gamble or a Pepsi or whatever.
Right.
So they have to make every dollar count.
Yeah.
So, but they also are facing market forces that says to them, you need to change, and there's going to be a cost to that. But here's some potential funding to aid that. So talk to me a little bit about how you've come to be, I'll call it, this facilitator or catalyst for change, leveraging grants.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound too much like a commercial here, Andrew, but in being in business for 31 years, my biggest partner is my wife, right? Mm-hmm. My second biggest partner is the government. I mean, you're going to pay taxes. We pay all our taxes. I've been audited once, but I pay my taxes. So, and I always thought as an entrepreneur, the government, I'm collecting taxes. But this program I discovered partially from my sister Jennifer, who's a lawyer, was with the CRA at the time, and also with some friends of mine in the business. there was this platform called the Canadian Ontario Job Grant. And initially it was started for skill development, teach drivers how to drive a car,
Right.
and so on, right? And what I'm really proud of is probably 8 years ago when I found out about this, I argued strongly that small businesses needed. I'd sold my business, Andrew, and a big part of my business. I was kind of hanging out, up north and getting bored, and kind of thought, well, I really want to help small business. This is the kind of vision that I had. This is a big huge change from, you got to understand, from working 20 years in big business to all of a sudden focusing on small business. Huge mega shift for my organization.
Mm-hmm.
And we survived. And what I did is I argued that small business like us need planning. They need to understand how to move their business forward. And I've always believed, from my Procter and Gamble days and Pepsi days and whatever, and TD Bank, that good plans are bottom up. So I argued, and I put together a whole platform of we have it called the 3 C's: create, communicate, close. But create is creating that brand, the messaging, the vision of where you want to go, the 3190s. And I had to put together this and then talk to, there's 200 service providers across Ontario. And finally, after about a year and a half, I sold one in. So I convinced them that it should be part of the platform. And now marketing is part of their curriculum. So I'm really proud of that. I'm not just saying I did it. There's lots of other people that did it at the same time. But it was a big part of what I argued.
You identified a gap.
I did, because I said, look, small businesses need help. They need to take that big business learning and integrate it into their business. And our first one of our first clients is just, as I mentioned, is the architectural client is thriving and growing. He wasn't our first, but one of our first big customers. So it was a matter, Andrew, of, so here's the deal. It's 83.3% of our fees are paid for by the government. So so virtually, of course, I was getting bigger fees when I was at the big organizations, but all of a sudden, I can now deal with smaller organizations who can afford me. Who can afford my team, not just me. I've got, it's not just me at all. It's Fina, it's Jacob, it's my team, which I'm really proud of. So, and it's not. There's all kinds of other areas you can work in. There's sales training, which is a big part of what we do, teaching people how to communicate effectively and sell. There's communications, which is Fina's really good at, which Andrew, social media, website. How do you communicate once you've once you've determined your brand? How do you communicate your brand? Then how do you sell it? So we call it, again, create, communicate, close. But there's lots of other organizations that are out there, and this is a great platform. And there's $300 million in Ontario for this platform, and no one's heard about it, right? So that's a blue ocean. So when I discovered this, no one was doing it, right? So all of a sudden I said, well, hold on a second. This is an opportunity. And it's become a big part of our business.
Mm. Well, and to your point, there's a lot of business owners out there that recognize the need to change, or that they need to do certain things to remain competitive and grow.
Right.
But they, to your point, they need help.
Yeah.
And if you can mitigate, I'll call it the cost risks, and help them move from A to B, feeling less risk averse, or feeling confident. Oh, okay, that's manageable. Then you shift the thing away from what's this going to cost me to how is this going to impact my business, which I'm assuming is a much more positive frame of mind for a business owner.
Yeah, Andrew, and the thing is that what I've discovered, and the reason I'm into the private equity space now as well, with a partnership, an alliance with PE Gate, is that we've helped our clients really grow and build. And then now I'm partners and I got skin in the game. So it's a different conversation, right? So, and just so you understand, the COJG it's all about strategy. We can't actually do the execution as part of the program, but it's all about strategy and helping them with the right plan. And leadership training and sales training is a big part of it. And it's just, it's a really great program. I anybody can check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of service providers that are out there that can help organizations grow and thrive. It's not just about us, but there's lots of different companies that are utilizing.
On the private equity side, and having some skin in the game.
Yeah.
While I recognize it's been a growing part of your business, you don't partner in that way with every client.
No.
Assuming.
No, and we have a very select few. we're looking for those organizations. To be honest, Andrew, it's kind of like your business too. We're looking for those organizations that are really successful in spite of themselves. They may, like one of our clients, is really good at what he does. Didn't have a website, didn't have a USP. His team really liked him because he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And he was carved out a very unique niche in the marketplace, but didn't. So what we did is we started with the why. So why are we here? Well, you know what? I really just like helping people. Oh, that's cool. Tell me more about that. What does it mean, right? So we went through the why. We went through the why, how, what. Then we developed a strat plan, and then we carved out a really unique position in the marketplace. We developed a website, social media, a sales strategy, and their whole business boomed. Thankfully, Andrew, we got involved earlier before it went 10x. So we became business partners in their organization. So not only were we helping them grow, but we invested and we got skin in the game, and that's a different conversation.
Right.
So even with the architectural firm, all of a sudden we're partners in their business, and we handle their AGMs. We're helping them manage their finances. We're doing the marketing and all that kind of stuff. Yes, but it's now. I got skin. I want to make money on this. I want to get returns. It just so happens I'm getting a heck of a lot better returns than I am in the marketplace with everything else I do. So that to me, if through our 3C process, I've seen success, and then we early on will say, can we be a partner in with those organizations? Some people you don't want to be partners with, and you know that.
Right.
They just want to do their own thing or whatever. No problem. Or they're too successful. They don't. Whatever. So I can help them. But the longer term partnerships to me are at this stage in my career are really exciting. And that's so what I want to do is help them, train them, and then be partners with them. That's the organizations that we're really looking for, to be honest.
I mean, I know you're being somewhat facetious or kidding around when you say, finding those businesses that are successful despite themselves. But, there's often talked about people talk about entrepreneurship to say that growth is truly when the founder and owner of a business can extract themselves from the day to day.
Yeah.
That the business runs itself.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about the 3 C's, is that one of the things that's infused in the strategic planning about, well, not just from a succession planning, selling the business, but in order for the business to grow and thrive, that we have to alleviate micromanagement. We need to extract the leader or leaders more from what the day-to-day, like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, Andrew, you get it, right? You and I are in the trenches. You get it, right? I mean, you understand this stuff. I think ultimately, I'm thinking of a couple of the clients that we're dealing with. What we try to do through the private equity is get the the two right-hand men in one cases, one is a female, sorry, to be partners in the business for the long term, right? So if this individual at some point probably wants to retire in 5 years, great. But we try to say, don't retire, because Andrew, I'm never retiring, by the way. Like, I'm going to coach. I'm going down when I'm 92 years old, and you're going to have this conversation. I'm coaching somebody. I'm helping. Like, I'm not going anywhere. Retirement is not part of my gig. Okay.
Whipping them with your cane.
Dr. Shane Tracy, 75 years old, turned 75 a couple of days ago, is my partner in the leadership platform. He is an awesome guy, written books. He's never retired. Like, he's my mentor. I love the guy, right? So he's just a wonderful. But that's the case. But getting back to the question. So if an entrepreneur, absolutely, the strength of an organization is when the owner, operator that started the business walks away from the business and it still is successful. That's absolutely what gives us the most value.
Right.
However, what we like to have is that entrepreneur to have a seat on the board. So even when one of our clients is going to retire, and he said 5 years, so he retires whenever age he is. I won't mention his age because he's probably listened to this at some point. He's going to retire, but he still wants to have that seat on the board, Andrew. So we have quarterly meetings, and he's directing. He's still going to sell because he loves it, and he can't get away from the business. Like, there's only so much golf you can do, man.
Right.
If you love what you do, stay engaged and have a seat on the board, and create a board that can direct traffic. That's success.
So
walking away, like going like this and like, I'm out of here, like,
Right. So you're helping them envision maybe a future they hadn't considered.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because in the case of an architectural firm, we're not architects, so we can only own 49%. We're never taking over
Yeah.
100%. And some of our clients were 100% owners, but the entrepreneur is going to stay on board
Mm-hmm.
for one reason or another. Maybe he has minor share, whatever it is. But even if they have 10% shares, it's amazing how much they care. And the employees that have, that become partners in the business, it's like the lights are on. Like, they have, all of a sudden they've invested a little bit of money, or they get it through dividends or whatever. All of a sudden they're like, I care about this business, guy. I got skin in the game. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different conversation.
To make them fall back in love with the business.
Typically, we don't see. I'm just trying to think. I mean, I've gone through the COJG. We've had over 50 organizations. Very few are individuals that own the business that aren't considering bringing in partners to the business. Very few. If the business is a new business, when I started my business and I was, full of ego and everything else, and I was representing athletes, and I had Pepsi, and I had Gillette, and I had TD Bank, and I didn't need a partner. I was too smart, according to myself, and boy, did I learn that wasn't true.
Right.
So I think entrepreneurs got to open up their minds to bringing in partners within their organization, or in some cases, we're looking for people to come in and be partners in the organization. So that's certainly a process that we look to, and that's part of the strategic planning. Andrew, is where do you want to be in 3 years? Do you want to retire? Do you want to really walk away? You want to give all this 20 years of business? You just want to move on? Not many entrepreneurs just say, I'm done.
Yeah.
Some of them are tired and they just want the money. They just want to get out. And unfortunately, Andrew, what happens is, the companies that are under $10 million, let's say, and they're making good money and they've saved money, they got lots of. They've created this whole empire, and they just said, just wrap it up. I mean, you talked about, a relative who just, packed in their business, right? Because they didn't care and they got into something else. Great. But we like to have continuity.
Yeah.
And continue.
It doesn't happen for everyone. Well, no. With that in mind, and, we've got to bring things to a close.
Oh, too bad. We'll just start talking.
We'll have a follow-up.
We'll just get worked up.
If you had to leave, shall we say, one piece of advice, whether it's through the lens of the 3 C's or getting them to fall back in love with their business, what piece of advice would you want to share with viewers and listeners of this that might be either considering entrepreneurship or have been an entrepreneur for a while and they're at a crossroads for their business?
Well, first of all, to start the business, you need a customer.
Yep.
I don't care how good your idea is. If your customers aren't buying it, don't do it. Yeah. So that's number one. A relative of mine said, Mike, I really want to, how did you start your business? And I'm going to say, Andrew, it's either inspiration or perspiration. I had to. My wife and I were pregnant at the time, and I had to make some money, and I was tired of making money for everybody else, to be brutally honest. So if you have an idea and I knew what I was doing, customers were going to buy. Like because I was kind of already in that space. Right. I just started my own business. But I would say that the young entrepreneurs. I love talking to young. I met a young lady last night. I'm going to meet with her tomorrow. She's great. She's awesome. She's got a great vision. I want to help her. I love helping people. That's my passion and energy. So starting a business is get a customer. Try it. Don't do this strategic plan yet. Get in the marketplace and see if you can be successful. That's the number one thing that I would say to future entrepreneurs. And just do it. Like, just start it on the side. Do something. Don't pontificate.
Yeah.
Just go. So, and that's tough for some people that are more, therapeutic.
Well, it was the same for me. It was a customer that presented themselves. It wasn't that a business plan had been written. So
there you go. You just did it.
Yeah.
And my wife and I were pregnant, and I said, I got to make some money. I got to get out there. I got to have fun. Let's go. Entrepreneurs that have been in business for 20 years, they get bored. They get stuck in bureaucracy and not being an entrepreneur. Steve Jobs was an entrepreneur until the day he died. He was creating new markets. He was doing new things. So you got to get back to that blue ocean strategy. You got to spend 10% of your time thinking of new markets that you're going to get into. Again, we've talked about chat, GPT, whatever.
Right.
So I would say the way to inspiration is create new stuff. Like, don't get stuck. Be entrepreneurial, within your organization, and make sure you have entrepreneurial thinkers. Because if you get stuck, like the architectural firm was stuck, right? Because they weren't doing new things, and now they're totally inspired. So that, Andrew, the best compliment I ever had was a client. We were at a golf club, and I was meeting with the client about the next steps, and his wife came up to me, who I'd never met, and said, "I just got to give you a hug." And I said, "Sure, I don't know who you are." I'm a hugger. Pre-COVID. And and I said, "Nice to meet you." She said, "I just want to let you know that you've made a difference in my husband's life. He's a better person. Okay, his business is much better, but you've really made a whole life change." And that to me is important, because we made those changes, Andrew. He was able to do that. So I would say the number one thing is be entrepreneurial. Never lose that passion.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's a great place to leave it. But I have to say that kind of compliment from not just a client, but from someone who close to them, you can't quantify that kind of thing. So
I'm taking that with me, man. No.
Kudos to you. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for the time that you spent with me today and everything you shared. It was a fantastic conversation, and lots of value that you conveyed. So thank you again.
Thank you, Andrew, and congratulations on your book. I know you're writing another one, and you're
We'll see.
You said never lose that passion, man. You're good at what you do, so congratulations back on you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Low Production High Value Show. Be sure to give us a rating and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out Volterra at volterradigital.com to learn more about how they can support your social media marketing.